Hi folks, this is Richard's Roundup with me, Richard Sirott, and the other half of the Roundup team is with me here, my great pal John Head, who's my engineer and editor. Now, something a little bit different this time. At the Astor Theatre on Friday the 5th of May, we have Knock Knock. No, it's not one of those question and answer jokes. It's a drama, a two-handed drama, with a very unusual twist and aspect to it. Now, to find out more about it, I have the writer of the play with me here today, Floyd Toulay. Floyd, greetings.
It's nice to be here, Richard. Thank you.
Now, this play is very unusual, and I think if I'm right in saying, one of the inspirations for it comes from your young youth to do with the slaughter of a pig.
Yes, it sounds like a bad start to a story, doesn't it? But it is true. When I was, I'm South African by birth, and when I was brought up in Durban, I was brought up in many places, but predominantly Durban. And one day I was wandering through the bush, and I heard a noise, and went to investigate and saw a pig. It was a big old thing. It was a sow. And anyway,
a wild one?
Oh no! On a farm, like a big
yeah.
farm area. And it was wandering around doing its own thing, and you took notice of it, and I've always liked animals. I thought, oh, isn't that nice? As a kid does, you think that's lovely. Anyway, I went away. A few days later, walking through the same area, I heard a noise, and I heard the pig again. And I went down there. And when you're a child, you tend to go in with a preconception of what you expect to see. And I went in expecting to see what I had done before, which is a happy pig. Mm-hmm. And I came down. There was these two gentlemen with trying to entice this pig to follow them. And being a child, I thought it was quite funny, trying to watch them take the pig and lead it. The pig was having none of it.
Because they're quite intelligent animals, aren't they?
Very, yeah. I mean, when I've researched, apparently more than a dog, exactly, yeah. They're very misunderstood creatures, as are many. But and to cut a long story short, suddenly from being very funny, it became quite unpleasant because they, instead of enticing it, they started to hit it, they started to kick it, they did various things to try and make it move, and the pig was still having none of it. And in the end, by devious means, they managed to take this pig into a barn. And I followed, and because of what they were focused on, what they were doing, they didn't see me or expect me to be following in. And I walked in, and I won't repeat what I saw, but it was extremely traumatic, so much that I didn't speak for about a day and a half, apparently. I sort of vaguely remember being a bit odd, or odder than I normally am.
Well, without talking specifics, I was presuming the pig was slaughtered.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And it's the actual slaughter of a pig is particularly unpleasant. So that really horrified me, and it stayed with me for a long, long time. And I, at this ripe old age now, about 4 years ago, wanted to write something about it, and didn't quite know how.
Because digressing from it, because we were talking about this before, you haven't always been, as you are now, a writer of drama and plays, because you've got a background in writing, but completely different. So what was your original background?
Yes, up until I've been writing for the stage, I've been a copywriter in advertising, so a commercial creative copywriter. I did that for 20 years, and the lessons you learn in writing, as you know, is that words matter. Saying less is often more important than saying too much. Mm-hmm. So that informed a style. So when I then took the move to write the play, the style and nature of the play is based, I suppose, a lot to do with my own personal background in writing.
But also a good command of English vocabulary.
I hope so.
Which makes all the difference.
Yes, I hope so.
So I was sorry to go off on a tangent. I just wanted to make the listeners aware of the diversity of what you've done in the past to where it led to now.
This is quite a leap.
Yeah. So coming back to the play.
Yeah, so wanted to write something about it, and began to think about it, toyed with a few ideas, and didn't pursue it. And then, to transgress again, a friend was putting on a play. He was a professional actor called Tim Marriott. Came up with an idea of a play called Snared, and invited me to write it. He had the idea. I wrote it. We toured it. It went very well. And that was the sort of the gear change, really, because we did it, because I actually had done it and been part of it. I suddenly had more time to focus on Knock Knock, And
so when you wrote Sneered, then you although you wrote it, you'd actually been given a storyline.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So he came up with a concept which was a terrific one, and then I just had to fill in the dots really. So it was a lovely experience. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It went well. And Knock Knock, although everything I've just said makes it sound incredibly miserable and dark, and and to some extent it probably is, but there is also, it's not entirely miserable. There is it should be an experience. If people haven't been to theatre for a while, it should be something that makes them realise what they miss from theatre. I'm not talking about Knock Knock being because it's a magnificent play. I'm talking about that intimacy that you get from being in a theatre, and it's a two-hander. So what you see on the stage, you get very drawn and you become very involved in the story. And the Astor Theatre, in particular, the reason we wanted to be here so much is you have a culture of local theatre that I think matches our show very, very well.
And also, I think particularly Astor's got a lovely ambience.
Yes, it has.
It's the older style theatre.
It's wonderful. Yeah. It's a good old-fashioned theatre.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's very nice.
So, as far as the play itself is concerned, I mean, firstly, was one of your ideas, as far as the play was concerned, that when people left the theatre after they'd seen the play, that it made them think about other things? Did it make them more aware of certain things? Did you want them to leave questioning things or puzzling in their own mind why certain things were and weren't?
Yes, definitely, absolutely. I mean, what I didn't want, it'd be easy to say what I didn't want. What I didn't want to do was, I'm a vegetarian, and I have obviously my own values and beliefs over that. But what I didn't want to do is hit people over the head with a hammer. I find that incredibly tedious if you go and watch something. So that's why it took a long time to write. So I have a device which is dissociative identity disorder. So the main character has this condition, and that means that device, which I'll explain in a moment, allows me to exactly not do that. I don't beat people over the head. It is before it's anything else, it's a bit of drama with a story, a beginning, a middle, and an end that I hope is engaging. But obviously, one of the themes in that is what we've just talked about. So yes,
Is it an actual condition, DID?
Yes, it is. Yeah. I mean, it's been, when I researched it just to explain what it is, and it's the way it was described to me, which I think is wonderful, is if you imagine when you look in a mirror, you see your face. If someone hurls a stone into that mirror while you're looking at it and it shatters, each shard will show you. So it's not that each shard represents a small part of you. It tries to, there's lots of you. Mm-hmm. DID, or it used to be called multiple personality disorder, is effectively the same. If someone experiences trauma, usually sustained trauma, but it can be one or two experiences that are tremendously traumatic to that person, one of the ways of coping is the person dissociates themselves. So the person who's watching the experience or enduring it says, I can't cope with this. So the brain dissociates, and that part of the personality disappears into the subconscious, and another part is created, and that other part can have a different name, a different sex, a different background, whatever the brain will dream up. That doesn't stop there, that you then have more characters come along, so you can end up with one person having, as we said, throwing a rock into a mirror, 15 to 20 different personality types. When it first came about, it was dismissed as nonsense, because it does sound fantastical. But then it was, when explored by psychiatry and lots, it became clear that there was something there. It then got terribly confused with schizophrenia, because they have similar symptoms. But finally, in the last 10 years, it has now been acknowledged as a condition entirely separate.
No, I've only ever seen this fictionally, but it's used a great deal as a tool in crime thrillers, and quite rightly so, because you can have these completely diverse characters. You can have a woman who's basically a nun, and one of her other identities is a psychopath.
Exactly.
Which can either be genuine or can be used as an alibi.
Yeah, exactly. So, and it has been done as well. Yeah.
From your research on the actual condition, is it something that can be genetically passed on, or is it nearly always created by some terrible trauma in the person's life?
As I understand it, I don't recall, and it's almost always sustained trauma, and it's usually very unpleasant. It's the sort of condition where the person, they just can't cope anymore. So,
and is it curable?
Yes. Well, funny, there's a term in itself, curable. That's the language I've certainly used as well, but I'm not so sure anymore. I think I have come to accept that the people who have it and talk about it say it's not something you can cure particularly, but it's something they can become used to living with. And that means, I mean, again, one person described it, I thought, wonderfully. They said, if you imagine you have all these personalities in your mind, and what you do is you get them together, so around a table, and they talk. I mean, this sounds bizarre, but
it certainly does.
That is a way of resolving it, to stop the tension of who's going to be in charge, who's going to be the person, the host personality.
So you mean what you're saying with this kind of therapy, there you can actually have a conversation going on, one person going around the table, it's different characters.
Yes, I mean, it's bizarre. But
that is bizarre, yeah. So I mean, the other thing I was reading about the actual play, I mean, comments like, it was unsettling, a mind broken by the past, from what you were saying. That's a very good description of it. Cat and mouse, is he insane, is he sane? Yeah. Now I saw a little bit of it, a bit of the play on the internet. Now firstly, can you tell me about the cast? You've got Lucy Bagley and Philip Blair. Without giving, I mean, I know you said it's got a beginning, a middle and an end, so without necessarily giving anything away, can you give the listeners an idea of who the characters are and what's happening in the process?
Yeah. The key character that we're exploring really is a chap called Billy Carr. So that's the character that Philip Blair is playing. And he is a chap. We join the story after an event has happened. It's about a fire has been started. Someone has died. And a woman, who's played by Lucy Bagley, is interviewing him. And we are not informed who she is, who he particularly is in his background. So what happens is we learn the story almost through her. She is our guide. So she picks away, because he's in utter denial. He knows nothing about anything, doesn't remember anything, but how much of that is the truth, how much of it is a lie, we don't know.
So when this thing is beginning, the conversation between the two of them, at that stage the audience doesn't know whether he's in a hospital, a police station, or wherever.
No. Deliberately so. We try to make it as ambiguous as possible, because what we want the audience to feel almost from the moment the show starts is a disconnection, because the whole program, the whole idea is about dissociation. We want the audience to feel that a little bit. So nothing is explained particularly to start with. I don't mean in a way that makes it, confusing. It is it's a clear storyline. But what happens is, if it's working well, more and more information is gradually passed through to the audience. So the story becomes richer and deeper and wider than they expected. So by the end of it, there is a richer experience.
And with that experience, are the audience given all the answers?
Yes.
By the end of it, do you realise where and why this conversation is taking place?
Yes, you do.
And you're actually aware of his condition.
Yes, it is filtered through by degrees. As I said, and the woman, she speaks for us in the audience, so she asks him the questions that we need to ask, because we're starting to think, well, maybe he's lying, maybe it's that, and she teases it out. She does it through affection, interrogation, friendliness, crossness, every emotion to try and get him to open up, and eventually he does, and then the story is realised.
I mean, obviously, I've researched a little bit of this, so I do know where the arson attack takes place, which I assume is relevant to the story. So I won't say what it is, because it might give. I don't know.
Yes, sorry, I should have. No, there's no. It's set in a slaughterhouse, and he wakes up, and when the woman is now, interviewing him, there is a man who was killed there, and the question obviously from day one is, did he do it? Did he kill him? Who was he? Why was he killed? And that's where the story starts.
So at the stage where the story starts, I mean, again, it's fascinating, so I don't want to give too much away to the listeners, but at that stage, has he forgotten what's happened, or is she having to draw stuff out of him because he just doesn't want to talk about it?
He's claiming from the very beginning that he doesn't remember. He wasn't there, he doesn't know what she's talking about, but we aren't so sure in the audience. We're thinking, well, perhaps this isn't entirely true. The woman certainly agrees with us that maybe he's not being entirely honest. So she is trying to engineer dialogue and conversation to work out what is true and what is a lie, and eventually succeeds by degrees, bit by bit, chipping away at a stone. He starts to break and starts to reveal a little bit more, and some of it maybe he didn't acknowledge himself because of his condition, so some of it might be new to him. It starts to become a bigger.
Well, you mean one of his personalities knows and another one doesn't.
Exactly. Yeah.
And with this ambiguity as the thing develops, so presumably you're, if you like, titillating the audience into thinking, well, as I said earlier, is this a hospital? Is this a psychiatrist? Is this a police cell? Or is it the mafia? I don't know.
It could be anything.
Yeah.
And so you have no idea to start with, and it's hopefully that's one of the things that makes it curious. And as you develop, we're taking down one road, then we're taking down another road, and eventually we're taking down the right road.
So, in terms of a visual aspect, as far as the stage setting is concerned, is the stage setting quite bland? So you've got no clues in the scenery as to where you are.
Yes, I mean the director came up with a lovely representation, which is basically almost what you just said. It's a white canvas. So the performers, for example, wear white. The background is white. It's a very simple, very simple set. But what we do is we have projection.
I was going to ask about this. Yeah.
We have sound. So although initially it is very basic and simple, again, as we move on, other things may start to feed into it and becomes a canvas for thoughts, for
because
ideas.
you've got music and film in
yes,
there.
Yeah.
So is it a bit like a black and white picture gradually turning into colour, so to speak?
That's a lovely way, but yes, exactly right. Yeah.
It's beginning to fill in.
Yeah, that's right.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. John Head here, Richard's sound engineer and editor. What you just heard is part one of an interview conducted by Richard with Floyd Toulet regarding his play Knock Knock, which is taking place at the Astor Theatre in Deal on the 5th of May. Listen out for part two of this interview, coming to you very, very soon.